It's so nice to really meet you.
Yeah,
So you just competed, right?
I did.
That's awesome. How did that go?
It was a super long, very exhausting day, but
Yeah.
went really, really well. It was the first show that I didn't cry after, so that's a win.
Really, like cry in a bad way or?
Yeah, I mean, just everything. There's just so
Yeah.
many emotions from prepping and peak week and
Hmm.
the adrenaline of being on stage and the athlete
Yeah.
mindset of th- hoping you would have done better, things you need to improve on, just everything. So,
Yeah. Were you proud of where you placed and how you did with your prep?
yes, yeah, this last time, every time I learned something a little bit better, new, easier on my brain and my body. And
Yeah.
yeah, this one went really well.
That's awesome. And you started actually competing last year, right? You did your first show?
Right. October 5th of 2019 was my first show. And then I was going to do a show in March of this year,
Wow.
but
Everything happened. Well,
yeah,
awesome. Before I ask you about that, let's kind of go back into like how you got into sports and everything and kind of what made you like the athlete you are today.
sure. So I've always been a tomboy, grew up in the Midwest. I'm the youngest of five. My sisters are quite a bit older than I am, but I have a brother that's about 4 years older, so just kind of followed along with him.
Hmm.
Started playing Little League softball when I was five. Just played whatever sport I could get my hands on and get signed up for in the Midwest,
Yeah.
basketball, volleyball in grade school.
Mhm.
And then fourth grade, I was diagnosed with scoliosis, and they put me in a back brace. And at the age of 10, some things register, some things don't. So my only question was, can I keep playing softball?
Mhm.
And the answer was yes. So I just wore my brace whenever I wasn't playing softball. I was in the back brace for about 4 years, fourth grade through eighth grade. And seventh grade, my scoliosis was almost completely straight on an x-ray. And then eighth grade, I went in for a checkup. I was going every 6 months. And the curve came back and was about 56 degrees in a
Wow.
6 month time period. So they couldn't really explain it. The only thing we were told is you definitely need surgery. So, and I guess I never really put it together, but
Mhm.
from the athlete perspective, it was kind of hilarious. My dad and I kind of sat down, to my mom's dismay, and plotted out how much time I needed to recover
Mhm.
to choose which softball seasons I could participate in. So I wound up finishing my grade school eighth grade season, my regular season of Little League.
Mhm.
I had to forego on an all-star team that I was voted on to so that I could just barely hit that 9 month window
Mhm.
to try out for freshman year softball in high school.
Yeah.
But after that surgery, the surgeon had strongly advised I don't play hard compression sports. So hard court volleyball was out, basketball was out, but softball was always my love. So that's what I fought for to get back and play.
Yeah, wow, that's super inspiring. So, how did that affect you in the sense of trying to be competitive with other athletes in your sport and everything?
Um, it really, I'm a pretty internal person when it comes to that. Very much cognitive and just the internal battle and struggle. So
Yeah.
I went to a boarding school for high school, which was kind of its own story.
Mhm.
Um, so when I got the 9 month green light that I could get back to sports, something in my head was just like, I grew up in the Midwest off of meat and potatoes, right?
Mhm.
So, but there was just something that I stopped eating red meat. I stopped drinking pop and kind of stayed away from dairy and things like that. And on my own, just kind of figured out how to really clean up my diet because in my head, I was like garbage in, garbage out, and I
Mhm.
wanted to get out on the field. The worst of it was after having my entire thoracic spine fused, and there really wasn't much of a rehab, which was interesting. I would go out to the track at my school late at night when it was dark and nobody was around and try and teach myself how to run again. because
Wow.
it was just the most insane feeling, and it doesn't even really make sense, but I just felt like my hips were on backwards, or like my brain was telling me to run or do certain movements, and my legs and body just couldn't figure it out.
Mhm.
So I would come back to my room, my dorm room, and my roommate thought I was had joined a fight club or something because I would have scraped knees and all sorts of things. But I made the freshman softball team. It was actually just JV. We were a pretty small school, so it was just JV and varsity.
Mhm.
And I played all 4 years. And again, about junior year, was just always kind of small. So I helped myself to the weight room and annoyed the PE teacher enough that she gave me a key, and I became the
Oh,
weight room
wow.
supervisor. So I could go in there before classes started in the morning. But
Wow,
just,
that's awesome.
yeah, it was just always kind of like, what can I do to get better, stronger, faster? And I really don't know where that came from. Because, like I said, I came from a very Midwest German family, so it's not like health and fitness were on the front lines growing
Yeah,
up.
I get that. That's the same with me too. So what kind of motivated you to get into bodybuilding then actually after
Um,
transitioning?
I don't really know. I've always kind of been interested in weightlifting. Some of it was just kind of the tomboy thing. Some of it was I've always been tall and lean to where, I can lift with the boys kind of mentality. I was only able to play 2 years of college softball.
Hmm.
My second year was technically against medical advice, but you don't need an orthopedic screening until junior year,
Hmm.
is how I got away with that. And then I just kind of started hanging out in the weight room because that's what I would have done in college for softball season and my off season. So I didn't really know how else to fill that void.
Yeah.
So I just kind of kept getting back into it. My nickname in college was actually Noodle, which which I got in the weight room from the first day of lifting in fall ball. So that's kind of interesting. And that nickname has kind of come back now as
Yeah.
I'm doing bodybuilding. But um, graduated college in '07 in Wisconsin, moved out to Arizona. I got my bachelor's in athletic training,
Hmm.
and I got my master's in sport and exercise psychology because, again, part of it was just, I guess, trying to physician heal thyself and fix that piece that I was missing. Just really struggling with identity of who I was because I had always thought that I was an athlete, but I was being told that I couldn't be. So just kind of struggling with that internal battle. I worked as a personal trainer while I was in graduate school. And then I got a job at a physical therapy clinic. And again, with the strength trainers, and we had a lot of professional athletes come in, I was trying to act rough and tough, like I could hold my own. Um, and then my husband and I were invited to do a terrain race, an obstacle course race
Hmm.
back in 2009. And I had a friend that saw that I did that, and she apparently was into those, invited me to do a rugged maniac with her. And while we were out on the course, she had said she thought of perhaps participating in a bodybuilding competition, and she wanted to know my thoughts.
Mm.
And so the conversation kind of started from there, that for me, it was always back of the mind, bucket list topic, maybe of, man, that would be really cool to be able to get up there. But, I'm 5'10", 130 pounds soaking wet, nicknamed Noodle. So I didn't really know if that was in the cards. So she and I just started training, and it's just kind of snowballed from there. I had my first competition, and
How long did you train prior to your first competition?
so we talked about it in June,
Hmm.
and I think I really truly committed at the end of June. I want to say it turned out to be like a 16-week period that I trained. Again, it wasn't really the best of training. I was going to the gym every day, but my nutrition wasn't really what it should have been quality wise. I mean, I don't really eat junk food or anything, but um, I really got into tracking macros and like protein dense and really quality rich foods after that first show.
Mhm.
Because again, the mindset I had is I did not do well that first show, and that's not how I was going to let this go down in the record books for me. So
Yeah.
I spent the whole night, I cried the way home, whole way home from that first show, and then spent the rest of the night researching natural bodybuilding online and found that the first in-state show would be in March, the Copper Classic. So that's what I was gearing up for.
The first show you did was at NPC?
No, the first show I did was INBF. It's another
Okay.
natural federation.
Mhm. Oh,
Hmm.
okay, awesome. Yeah. So did you kind of feel like competing was more complicated or harder than you thought it would have been? Because personally, for me, that's how it was. I didn't realize just how hard competing was and how much time you have to put into posing and just, yeah.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And that's what really bummed me out the first time is I was working with a trainer with my friend, and I did not get any prep at all for posing or what to do on stage. So you take that vision of the 5'10" noodle and just stick it on stage with a bunch of 5'6" thick bodybuilders.
I feel your pain. I know, I know. I see
Yeah,
my photos and
it
yeah.
was definitely a deer in headlights situation. And I just remember running off stage and ran to the lobby. We were at a stage in Peoria or a theater, and I ran to the lobby and met my husband. And I was just already full blown tears, crying. What was that? You know, it was pretty obvious. The show promoter actually came out to the lobby and caught me too. And he was great. He really offered some amazing advice and assured me that nobody's first competition goes smoothly or goes as well as they hope. So,
And do you think that it's better that it didn't go perfect because it kind of put a fire under your ass in the sense to really push and do better for the next one?
yeah, I mean, I wish I would have at least known what I was doing.
Mhm. Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely, like, once I got over that little pity party that night I came home, it was like a 45-minute drive from the theater to my house, and then I went straight to the bathroom and scrubbed off the Protan as fast as I could, asked my husband to hold me for about a half an hour, and then I was just like, can we go to the Olive Garden? I want one of everything. And then after that, it was just, yeah, it was just that fire and that drive of, all right, so I've seen it. I've seen how girls can handle themselves. I've seen the competition, and I know that I can do better than what happened today.
Hmm. That's awesome. So what, motivates you to continue to go and compete? And do you plan on competing, for your lifetime in a sense?
So it's been super interesting because again, it was one of those bucket list things and then something I was going to do with a friend, and now it's really blossomed into putting way too much money into a home gym during COVID. And there are days where I'm sure my husband gets completely sick of me talking about my macros and checking my Fitness Pal app. But about 2-3 months after I started really training, um, it was time for me to go check in with my pain management doctor. And up until this point, from the age of 10, I had been on daily anti-inflammatories. And about 2011, I have an autoimmune condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and that really started affecting other joints. I was having grip problems, problems with my elbows, shoulders, knees, and so I'd have to take narcotic pain pills. I'd have to take muscle relaxers just to be able to sleep through the night sometimes, and it was just a drag. And so every 6 months I have to check in with my back doctor to check in on my fusion, and I'd have to check in with my pain management doctor, see how things were, see if we needed to adjust pain meds. And so I got into this bodybuilding situation and made an appointment with my pain management doctor, who was just absolutely amazing. And it was almost a beg for forgiveness
Hmm.
rather than ask permission situation. And I had told her that I had started training for bodybuilding with my friend. And she noticed right away when I came in that I had put on some more muscle mass. But she started asking questions, said that I looked great, and she's really followed me all the way through and has been super supportive. And as time has gone on and I hit like my second competition, she absolutely loves the muscle mass that I've put on. It's been able to help support my structure, my ligaments. My pain levels have gone down dramatically. I actually got off all I don't take anti-inflammatories on a daily basis anymore. I haven't had to take pain pills in over a year now, and I very rarely have to use muscle relaxers. So that's she's been great too as far as diving into the educational realm and working with my diet as far as healthy foods for bodybuilding, but also really educating me on foods that will increase or trigger an inflammatory response. So having that knowledge and being able to work that in to an already like building progressive um uh it's great. She's just really helped me as far as my nutrition and everything like that, and tooling around with different supplements that are all natural has been super amazing as well. She turned me on to turmeric, apple cider vinegar. Not to do a plug or anything, but at One Stop Nutrition I actually found um a blend called Cryptojoint, and it's amazing. It took like 3 or 4 different supplements that she had took me onto, like the glucosamine, turmeric, all sorts of stuff, and put it all into one. So
Might need to start taking that. That's great. So what makes you want to compete naturally? Is there any particular reason, or you just never thought about taking steroids or drug enhancements or anything?
So I've never really thought about it. And then to be honest, you throw in my background as an athletic trainer. So the education that we vaguely touch on in school, you know, when you take your pharmacology class, it's the overall message is steroids are bad. And then when you throw in my own health issues, the education that I've gotten from my own pain management doctor, the experience that I've had in the last year of being able to put on muscle mass. Yeah, it takes a lot of work when you're naturally a small build. But like in my personal case, from what I know, because I'm not going to say that I'm an expert and this is why steroids are bad, but for me, what I know educationally and experience wise is I have an autoimmune condition that centers on the fact that my connective tissue is weak. So if I walk that through the thinking of taking an anabolic steroid that will help me increase muscle mass at an exponentially faster rate than I normally would, my ligament structure is so loose that it takes a lot of practice and a lot of years and knowledge and body awareness to be able to hold myself in neutral, that if I start rapidly putting muscle mass on, my ligaments aren't going to know what hit it to where it would be injury city left and right. And I mean, I went through that in high school and college where I had 6 different orthopedic surgeries, and they were all, I never broke bones, they were all ligament tears or capsule breaks. So just the thought of implementing something like that into my body, the health risks are just way too much to even consider. And I mean, it's harder work, but it's been fun. I mean, my husband and I have changed our nutrition to where it's a sustainable lifestyle. And we've talked about that a lot, is I don't want to create resentments against food. I'm a foodie. I love food. My husband says there are 2 types of people that eat to live because they have to, which is what he is. and people who live to eat. And I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. Like,
Oh.
I'll sit at a restaurant for 20 minutes and visualize the ingredients that I'm reading, because I'm like, ooh, what am I tasting right now? And, looking for that perfect bite. But I've not ever deprived myself in training of any particular food. I've just found the healthier option. And to be honest, there's nothing that I'm really craving once off season hits. There's nothing that I get upset about missing or try and sneak in a cheat meal or anything like that. So we've really found a great balance as far as carrying on our nutritional habits, whether or not I continue to compete. And I don't think I ever answered that story because I tell stories like this. But
No, you're fine.
the question as far as how long I keep competing, I'm not really sure. This year was so interesting. I know it was a unique year to get started in bodybuilding, because I wound up doing back-to-back shows and not a whole lot of downtime. So I feel like I've been in constant prep and constant peak week, one after another. I'll definitely go back next year for sure. I've committed to some great people at Buena Vista Health and Fitness in Sierra Vista for the Copper Classic. They've been huge supporters of mine, and I've never even personally met them, but they've been really encouraging me in my journey this entire year. So I'm looking forward to that show in March. And then, of course, I need to go back for Retribution to that very first show and see if I can't do better back at the Phoenician Classic.
Do you happen to have any suggestions or tips for anybody that's going through something similar to you or is growing up with scoliosis? Because
yeah,
everything you've done. I mean, even when I first reached out to you, I didn't even know you had scoliosis or the syndrome that you had. I just saw that, wow, she looks awesome, and like I just wanted to reach out to you. And then lo and behold, I didn't know this. So
thank you.
Yeah.
No, I could talk to you all day and get on my soapbox when it comes to scoliosis. I think the biggest thing that needs to happen with anybody diagnosed with scoliosis is you've got to exercise. You've got to find great physical therapists. I know a lot of people still come up to me and try and help me and tell me that they know a great chiropractor. And even chiropractors, I work with a phenomenal chiropractor right now, but he is one small facet of a huge system.
Yeah.
And he also talks about what exercises I'm going to be doing. So if you try and think that you can go in and get adjusted and everything is fine and dandy, you don't understand the role or the scope of what chiropractors can truly do for you, or how all of that physical therapy works. So just really, really try and, especially if you're at a scoliosis over 15 degrees, which is when they really start to treat you, I would, before anything else, really get in with a good physical therapist and try and work some of that muscular system, incorporating asymmetrical movements and just really developing that muscle structure, and really let surgery be a last and final option, because my parents didn't know any better. I mean, they grew up in the age of a doctor says you do something and you say yes sir, when and how, so I didn't really have that opportunity. Again, after studying athletic training, and I was actually pre-physical therapy for a little bit, and even working in a physical therapy clinic for many years, I worked very closely with a great physical therapist that specialized in the spine. And it just breaks my heart that unfortunately so many spine orthopedics, and I've had some great ones, in the exam room, they never even talk about going to physical therapy, and they never talk about exercising or strengthening muscles. And I feel like that's so sad. And I just don't know, even from a consumer standpoint, do they think that I, the patient, am going to go seek that out on my own? Or do they just think that somebody else is going to approach that topic? I
Yeah.
don't know what the answer is,
I'm
but
sure it
that
depends
just,
based on the doctor and their intentions, but I always think about that in terms of just wanting to medicate people or just simply do
right.
surgery and tell you you'll never be able to train again or something like that. And I've met a lot of people where they're like, well, my arthritis is bad or it hurts, so I don't want to work out, but they need to understand to be able to push through that pain in order to
Mhm.
be able to feel better. Because I'm sure you
Right.
had pain when you were working out and you pushed
Mhm.
through.
Oh, I still have flare days with my Ehlers-Danlos. I actually went in probably 3 weeks ago. We had a big temperature drop out here in Arizona, and everything felt swollen. To explain the type of joint pain that I have with Ehlers-Danlos is it's in the same realm as rheumatoid arthritis or fibromyalgia. So when I have a flare day, it affects everything, not just necessarily my back. And I went in for posing practice and it looked like I had the flu in my face and you're just struggling.
Wow.
And my coach, at least, because in my head, when you deal with it, and especially if you're younger,
Mhm.
sometimes my fear is that people won't believe me, because I look healthy on the outside or I'm too young to be sick. If you ever visit any websites for Ehlers-Danlos, they call it the invisible disease because one day I can be lifting a bunch of weights and hitting personal records in the gym. And then the next day I have to have my husband open up my water bottle because my grip strength is just that bad. Or I'll be laying in bed all day going between ice and heat just because the joint pain is that bad. And that's something that, again, it takes a lot of work and it's taken me 20 years to figure out what works and what doesn't work.
Mhm.
And even now, sometimes if I hit through that plateau that you learn when you really get into lifting and working out and you break through and all of a sudden you're at that next level of strength, sometimes I know that within a few days I'm going to have a flare or a setback because my body is trying to adjust to the new physiological things that are happening inside. But it was really interesting because my coach, who sees me all the time in my posing suit, said that he could tell that everything was swollen, everything was puffy and holding water. So, I mean, on the inside, from that invisible disease standpoint, I was like, oh, somebody believes me.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, it's taken a lot of time of learning what my limits are
Mhm.
because, yeah, there are days that I wake up super achy, but I know if I do some bridges, some clams, some ab exercises, that stiffness and that pain is going to go away and I'll be fine. And
Mm.
there are other days where I just really have to listen and I know it's going to be in bed with my fur babies watching Disney movies all day. I mean, the biggest thing that I've wanted to really bring to the stage every time I do go out is whether you have scoliosis, because I am not symmetrical. I still am not. Even though I've had that fusion, I still have a rotation in my spine. So I have what I call my hump side and my crescent shaped side. And I just actually realized the other day that with the help of my chiropractor doing cupping and scraping and stretching, with the help of a massage therapist and hitting the gym, and sticking true to myself and my routine, I didn't even realize that the lat on my left side on my crescent shape had filled out and opened up. So, I mean, my biggest thing is going out on stage is a very terrifying thing because you're asking somebody to point out all of your flaws. And there are a lot that I've been very ashamed of my body and embarrassed for many, many years. And I just really want to get up there so that anybody who does have something that they consider abnormal or scoliosis or Ehlers-Danlos or fibromyalgia, arthritis, anything, that you don't have to be a victim of those circumstances. And that was really the breaking point for me that changed everything in my life, was realizing that I didn't have to just sit around and wait for things to get worse.
Mhm.
That I could take control of my life, of my nutrition, utilize my resources, ask questions to your doctors.
Mhm.
They don't know if you're frustrated if you don't tell them. And that's really my biggest thing, is be your own advocate. And if there's something you want to do, ask for help is the biggest thing, because you can achieve those things. It might be scary and some days may hurt, but I mean, if the overall goal is worth it, you'll have such a blast rather than just sitting around. So
it's truly inspiring. So thank you for sharing your story. And I hope you'll definitely be inspiring anybody that views this. So
well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks for reaching out.
Nice meeting you.
You as well.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.